When a homeless child shouted, "Don't eat that," no one expected what would happen next. The Hudson Lounge, a refined restaurant in the heart of Manhattan, was a favorite among New York's elite. Nestled beneath the shadows of glittering skyscrapers and surrounded by meticulously trimmed trees, the place exuded sophistication. Outside, a modern fountain gently sprayed water in rhythmic patterns, muffling the soft murmur of refined conversations and the clinking of silver cutlery. It was noon, and the atmosphere buzzed with activity. Waiters in dark suits and white gloves moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays of exquisite dishes, imported wines, and steaming cups of coffee. The air carried the scent of freshly baked bread and fresh flowers on every table. But none of that impressed the man seated at the center table. There sat Richard Langston, a name that sounded like legend in the business world. At 74, Richard was the embodiment of success. He had built his fortune from real estate investments in Brooklyn in his 20s, and decades later, his empire spanned tech, fashion, and media. His tailored suit and thin-rimmed glasses reflected not only refined taste but a life steeped in luxury and power. Still, as he stared at the menu, his movements were slow, almost contemplative. In front of him sat Elena, his much younger wife, a presence as dazzling as it was mysterious. Her silky, dark brown hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. She wore a tight white dress and bold red lipstick that matched her designer handbag. She looked like a model straight out of a fashion editorial. But her smile, flawless as it was, didn't reach her eyes. She fidgeted with a diamond-studded bracelet on her wrist, barely paying attention to her husband. Her eyes were glued to her phone, scrolling through notifications that seemed more interesting than anything else around her. Outside the restaurant's glass fence, a boy watched. His name was Noah, though no one there knew it. To most, he was just another forgotten face of the city, a skinny boy in an oversized, worn-out hoodie. His anxious eyes jumped from plate to plate, from pocket to pocket. He knew those streets better than anyone. He slept there, surviving off scraps and crumbs of attention. Richard checked his watch impatiently. "You're far away again," he said, his voice low but firm. Elena looked up and smiled, mechanically. "I'm here," she replied, reaching out to touch his hand across the table. "You know how much I like." But before she could finish, a scream pierced the air. "Don't eat that." The high-pitched voice cut through like a blade. Everyone turned to the boy on the other side of the glass. Richard froze, fork just inches from his mouth. Noah jumped the fence and ran toward the billionaire's table, breathless, eyes wide. "There's something wrong with that food. Please don't eat it." Silence. A silence so heavy it suffocated. Security was already approaching. Nervous waiters. Whispers. But Richard didn't move. He just looked at the plate. Then at the boy. And then, the unexpected happened. For a moment, everything stopped. Richard's fork hovered in the air. The plate before him, a refined serving of salmon with herb sauce and truffle puree, still steamed. The aroma lingered, but there was no appetite now. Only tension. The restaurant manager quickly approached, followed by 2 uniformed security guards, ready to restrain the boy. "Mr. Langston, shall we remove this boy?" the manager asked, trying to sound calm despite the tension. But Richard didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on Noah's. That look, it was a look he knew from a long time ago. A look he once had. A look of someone who knew real hunger, not the kind that makes you order lunch, but the kind that hurts. That screams. "What's in this dish?" Richard asked, still staring at the boy. Noah breathed quickly, his small shoulders rising and falling. His eyes were red, not from crying, from urgency. I saw the man in the kitchen switch the plate. He took one off the tray and put another that looked the same. But the other one was different. He sprinkled some powder on it, like white powder. I thought it was sugar, but it wasn't. Everyone began to glance at each other. The whispers grew louder. "Damn lying kid," muttered the maitre d'. "This is absurd," Elena exclaimed, clearly irritated now. "He's embarrassing us, Richard. Get him out of here." But Richard remained still. "Let him finish," he ordered, his voice now colder. Sharper. Noah swallowed hard. He was sweating. He knew he might get thrown out. Might even get beaten up later. But he also knew what he had seen. "I live right back there," he said, pointing to the alley beside the restaurant. "I usually sleep near the back exit, behind the dumpsters. I see everything. And today, I saw a man in an apron come through the service door. He's not on staff. He messed with that plate. Then he ran. I tried to warn someone, but nobody listens to a kid like me." Richard slowly turned to the manager. "Check the kitchen cameras. Now." The manager hesitated for a second, but Richard's stare was stronger than any doubt. He nodded and rushed off. Minutes passed. Customers whispered. The tension spread like smoke across the room. Elena now tried to hide her discomfort by sipping water. Her fingers nervously tapped on the glass. The manager returned, pale, holding a tablet. "Mr. Langston," the boy's telling the truth. He placed the video in front of Richard. In black and white, the footage clearly showed a strange man, wearing a dark hoodie and gloves, entering discreetly through the back door. He walked up to the counter, switched 2 ready plates, and sprinkled something over one of them. Then calmly walked out, unnoticed. Richard just stared at the screen, then at his plate, and finally, at the boy. "You saved my life." Noah lowered his eyes. For the first time, he seemed speechless. Richard stood up, picked up the plate, and handed it firmly to the manager. "Call the police. And the press. This won't be covered up." He then turned to Noah. "What's your name, kid?" "Noah," he whispered. Richard extended his hand. "From today on, you're not sleeping behind any dumpsters. You're coming with me." And so, before a stunned restaurant, the billionaire walked out with the boy by his side. Security opened the way. Elena remained behind, motionless, her phone still in hand. But now, no one was looking at her. All eyes followed the man who had everything, and the boy no one noticed, walking away together, as if a new fate had just begun right there, among luxury, fear, and a twist no one saw coming.